I'm pretty sure everybody has heard of the story Samson and Delilah, right? But I just kind of want to give you a better insight on what it really is about, all right? This story depicts deliverance and salvation and how God's plan will never be stopped, no matter what. Okay. It also teaches a tough lesson of paying attention to the warning signs that God gives you in life and taking heed to them. Like, don't ignore the warning signs that God give you. He will always give you signs as to what it is that you need to do, who it is that you should be around, who it is that you shouldn't be around. Okay? He will always let you know, but it's up to you on whether or not you want to recognize what he's trying to show you, take heed to it, and put action behind whatever it is that he's showing you, okay? So in Judges chapter 13, an angel of the Lord appeared to this woman named Manoah, and he told her that she was going to give birth to a son, and that he gave her all of these instructions on what she should do and what she shouldn't do while she was pregnant, and that this child's hair was going to grow to be extremely long and they were never to cut it, okay? And she ran to her husband and told her husband like what happened, told her husband that an angel appeared to her and told her that she was going to bear a child. Now this woman was barren. She was not able to have children, okay? So she prayed to the Lord that he would send the angel again so that her husband could bear witness to this as well. And the Lord granted her wish. And he sent the angel again, and the angel repeated exactly what he had told the woman to her husband. So the woman's husband asked the angel to stay so that they can prepare some food for them to eat. And to show their appreciation and thanks. Now the angel said, I will stay while you go get the goat and prepare the offering, but I ain't eating none of your food, period. And he told them that if you want to show your appreciation and thanks, then you must make an offering to the Lord to show your appreciation and honor him, because he's basically saying, I'm just the messenger. Zora then asked the angel what his name was, and the angel pretty much told him, it's a secret. You don't need to know what my name is. Zora wanted to know the angel's name so they could honor him when they gave birth to the child. And the angel told him, you don't need to know my name. Again, if you want to honor goes to the Lord and not to me. So they get the goat and they place it on the rock, and they set it on fire, and the flames go up. And as the flames are going up, the angel ascends with the flames and disappears. Okay, and there's something to be learned here, because in the part where Zora is trying to offer thanks and honor and appreciation to the angel, what's being said here is that a lot of times we want to give praise, thanks, and honor to the messenger when the messenger is just the messenger. Blessings come from God. And that is what we need to realize. All blessings, any blessing that you receive in your life, it comes from God. Whether you receive a promotion at work. Promotions at work come from God. It was God that placed it on your boss's heart or whoever to promote you in the first place. Okay, whether you're getting a loan, a sum of money from somebody that you know, that blessing came from God. That blessing came from God. If you're without a car and somebody calls you up and say, hey, you need a ride, that came from God. God put that on that person's heart to bless you in that moment. So we need to recognize in life when blessings come forth to us, of course you thank the person that gave them to you, but you don't honor that person, because the real honor, it should be going to God, because that's where the real blessing came from. Okay? Because God already knows what you need, and he will send that blessing through people. Okay? So we need to realize that. And so moving on. Now, Samson is born. As he grew older, he began to bless Samson with strength and in other ways as well. And Samson became interested in a Philistine woman, okay? And the Philistines and the Israelites were not supposed to mingle in this way because the Philistines reigned over the Israelites, and they had them in bondage, and they were enslaved people. The Israelites were enslaved by the Philistines. So, the Israelites hated the Philistines, and the Philistines looked down upon the Israelites. But this was God's plan all along, because he had beef with the Philistines because the Philistines worshiped false gods, and they had his people enslaved. And so he had beef with them already, and he was just looking for a reason to do what he needed to do. And he created Samson for such a time as this to carry out his plan. Okay? So he knew that this would start a whole bunch of mess between the Israelites and the Philistines. So one day, while Samson was on his way to go meet this woman, he was attacked by a lion, the enemy. Anytime we're doing something good in life, anytime we're trying to elevate in life, or anytime God is blessing us with something, we're always faced with obstacles, stumbling blocks, or occasions that get in our way, which is representative of the enemy. The enemy will always try to stop anything good that is coming in your life. So, God's power came upon Samson. God's spirit came upon Samson, and Samson tore that lion to pieces, tore it into two, which symbolizes destroying a mighty enemy, as the Philistines were to the Israelites. Okay, we have to read between the lines when we're reading the Bible, and a lot of times it takes you doing some digging and really sitting and thinking and pondering on what the word means, because as many times as I've read the story of Samson and Delilah, this epiphany didn't come to me until today. I really didn't break it down the way that it kind of just sprung up in my mind today, and I was able to interpret it into a totally different meaning. Okay. So, and Samson destroying this lion is depiction of how God's plan will not be stopped ever, regardless. It will not be stopped. His plan is gonna come to pass. And no matter who think they can, stop it, or no matter who think that they could try to throw any type of stumbling blocks in the way, God gonna have his way regardless, because we need to realize that he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, okay? He's over all things, and a lot of people think that they can come up against God and they're going to lose every time. He will not lose. He will not lose, period. Okay? So after he returned, now time has passed, he done went back home, and now he's going back to retrieve this woman, his bride. And on his way there, he notices the carcass of the lion that he destroyed previously. So, and he noticed that there was a swarm of bees and honey that was inside of this dead carcass. And he went over to it and used his hands and dipped out some honey out of this carcass and began to eat it along his journey. He even took some home to give to his parents. And now they didn't know that this honey came out of a dead carcass, and he didn't tell them. And this just pretty much expresses that none of them were aware of God's plan. Okay, so God, he was still speaking his plan into fruition. And, the honey also symbolizes the land of milk and honey, which was promised to the Israelites long ago. But because they kept falling into disobedience, they would oftentimes find themselves enslaved and entrapped by the enemy because they just couldn't get right. So later in the story, 3,000 men went to capture Samson because he had slaughtered many after being betrayed by this woman, this Philistine woman that he had married. And they found they found him and they bound him and attempted to take him to jail. And they had him in chains and everything. So during the transport, God's power, God's spirit came upon Samson, and the restraints loosed off of him. And he picked a jawbone off the ground and slew the entire army of 3,000, killed every last one of them with a jawbone, which symbolizes God's deliverance and God's salvation. God can use anything to give you victory and defeat against your enemy if you allow him to, by taking hold of what he is offering, which is deliverance and salvation. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord, which is stated in Romans 12:19. He not playing, y'all. Even being surrounded by the enemy, he will still give you a way out of victory. This man was surrounded by 3,000 men, and with a jawbone from a dead carcass that was laying on the ground, he used that. God was able to use that and gave him the power to slay 3,000 men. Crazy, y'all, right? But because, once again, God had given him a way out once again. But because of his lustful ways and just being blinded by lust and just couldn't resist the feminine wiles of a woman, that he would always find himself falling victim to a woman. He still hadn't learned, y'all. He still hadn't learned that these Philistine women could not be trusted. Now he has his eyes set on another Philistine woman. And the lords of the Philistines had convinced this woman to find out what the secret of Samson's power was, okay? And 3 times she tried to trick him, asking him to tell her his secret of his power. And 3 times he lied to her. Three times he lied to her. And each time she set him up and brought the Philistines in to capture him each time. Now, you would think that he would have learned, but because every time that he would tell her the secret, it was a lie. So, of course, he was able to overtake the Philistines and they weren't able to capture him. But God will show you who your enemies are. He will show you who your enemies are. He will show you who you can trust and who you can't trust. But it's up to you to listen and take heed to what he's trying to tell you. Now, with Delilah's 4th and final try, Samson had grew weary and he was just tired of her nagging him about what his secret was, to which gave him all of this power. Now, this time he gave in and he told her the truth, that the secret was his hair. And so my whole thing is what I say all the time in a lot of my videos. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. You shouldn't have to go through a whole bunch of stuff if somebody have showed you multiple times who they are. It shouldn't be at your demise that now you finally believe them, or that now you finally see who they really are. And this grave mistake led him to being captured. He finally told her that the secret of his strength was his hair, the length of his hair, and that if it was ever cut off, and that he would lose all of his power. So that night he told her the secret, and she pretty much made him go to sleep that night at her knees, at her feet, in her lap. And while he was sleeping in her lap, she called the Philistines in. They came in, cut all of his hair off. And they captured him and, chained him up, hauled him off to prison or whatever. And this time he couldn't break loose out of the chains because he had no longer had God's power within him, because that was what was giving him his strength this whole entire time. So now he's imprisoned, and now the Philistines have gotten big-headed. They big-headed because they feel like, we've finally taken this, this man down that has slaughtered so many of our people. And they called him. They had guards to go get him out of the prison so that they could parade him around and mock him and make fun of him and all of these things. So they stationed him right in between these two pillars that pretty much supported the entire structure of this building or this house that they were in. So Samson cried out to God one last time and asked him, if you could just please give me your power one last time. And so that he could put an end to all of this. And God granted him his wish, and he gave him his power one last time. Samson used both of his hands to kind of like wedge himself in between both of these pillars and pulled down both of the pillars, which supported the entire structure of the house, brought the entire house down on everybody. The lords of the Philistines and everybody that was in attendance was killed, and including himself. Samson also perished in this last act of victory, which ended the reign over the Israelites, which ended the Philistines' reign over the Israelites. So because the Israelites, the Philistines had gotten so big-headed and was, thanking all of their gods for delivering Samson into their hands. And, of course, this infuriated God, which is why he gave Samson this one last request of power so he could take them down completely. But God will always have victory. Always have victory. His plan prevailed regardless of who thought that they could stop something. He knew from the get-go what was going to happen and how he was going to take them down. And Samson was part of that plan, but Samson kind of took part in his own demise because he was just so lustful and just couldn't take heed to any of the warnings that God was giving him. And because we all have free will, God allowed him to go ahead along and just, pretty much be a part of his own demise. So, God will not be deceived, y'all. He will not be deceived, and he will not be mocked. God will always bring deliverance to his people.